I know what it feels like to lose 100 pounds. I know what it feels like to face diets. I know what it feels like to not have a support system. I know what it feels like for my doctor to not understand what he's talking about. And we've just built a big support system on this new paradigm shift in how we're going to navigate through getting people actually healthy again.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Scott Fulton. Good to be with you again today. My guest today is a return guest, Stefanie Ignoffo. Stefanie has an amazing personal journey that she's going to share with us, and I'll let her tell you that story. Mainly what I think I wanted to follow up with Stefanie was to see where she is with her journey, but more with what she's doing with the community that she's been developing when we first met a few years ago and talked about it. What I think you're going to take away from this is what a role community plays in our success in life in general, but also in terms of meeting the goals that we're trying to achieve. We can tend to try to take a lot on ourselves, and while that sometimes feels easiest, it ends up being a much longer and harder journey and with much lower odds of success. And so I think what you'll get from our discussion is really the role of how community plays in support, figuring out what's the right type of community in terms of developing that sense of are they really there to support me, or are they supporting some other cause and I'm perhaps a vehicle for them to get what they want. And it's just a really positive discussion because Stefanie is so inspiring. She's so positive in her approach, and her success comes as no surprise to me. So with that, let's bring on Stefanie Ignoffo. Stefanie, it is great to be back with you again. I think, how long has it been since we first had our show?
4 years. 4 years ago. Seems like forever.
Yeah, it's been the fast lane ever since. I've been watching all the things you're doing, and I think I'm looking forward to hearing some updates. And if your world's been anything like mine, it's been a lot of fun, a lot of action, and we continue to see growth. So I want to learn what all you've been getting your hands into and messing around. And I see clips of you riding your bike and doing all sorts of fun things. I think that's, if there's one theme, one word I use to describe Stefanie, it's fun. That's clearly a commitment to having fun. And so that whole health and fun thing, yeah, they actually go together, don't they? So what's been going on?
Well, first of all, a lot has been going on. Thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting. And I'm going to just bounce off of what you said. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. We really need fun to get through all the things that are going on in life, from CEO, entrepreneur, lifestyle medicine coaching. If we're not having fun, I don't think I'd be here if we couldn't. And the roller skating, we brought in roller skating this last couple of years, and that's been really fun. So what's been going on? Lots of learning, lots of honing in on how to really help people make these diet and lifestyle changes so that we can live longer, so that we can be healthier, so that we're not getting taken out by this epidemic of chronic disease. Just trying to get the word out, reaching and teaching people globally now through our lifestyle medicine approach, how to get this down so that, we can just live a longer, healthier, happier, more fun life.
That's great. So so your community is called Plantspiration, which it's one of those first time I saw it. Plantspiration, that's beautiful. It really kind of captures the essence of what we're talking about. Again, that kind of inspiration, because I think you're clearly an inspirational leader. So tell me about the program or the community that you've continued to build, it sounds like.
I'd love to. The program I've definitely honed in on what it takes for people to make these changes. Since we last spoke, I completed the lifestyle medicine coaching program through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and I wasted no time expanding the Plantspiration membership to not just the cooking classes, which in 2020, when we last spoke, it is just a month after that I started teaching virtual, and that exploded, Scott. Like, once I could teach these classes virtual, at the time I was teaching Food for Life classes with the Physicians Committee. I'm a Food for Life instructor. I've taught over 350 of those classes, I think, and we have since created our Eat Your Plants Off nutrition, education, and cooking classes that go into the Plantspiration, the model of the pillars. I coach sleep. I coach, making sure people get those activities in, making sure we're getting that stress management down. And we're really hitting the map on the community aspect of things, the community that we've built with Plantspiration. On top of it, Saturday support group, the cooking classes, the coaching. We're really seeing so much success from having these things in place. It's like one thing to learn all these new habits and these behaviors, but it's another thing to undo them. And a lot of people fall off. They think that this is just going to be a quick fix. We're just going to eat some healthy food and you're just going to be able to knock this out. But 12 years later, keeping 100 pounds off and seeing what it takes working with people for the last 10 years, I really think we've honed in on what makes this an even easier journey on the highway to health, as we call it.
Cool. Yeah, you've obviously developed some great phrases that I think really capture it beautifully. So maybe just to remind people of your own health journey, you've probably told this thousands of times at this point, but just so we don't skip over that, because I think that's a really important part of your story.
Thank you. It's never enough, because any chance I get to explain to people, I was this sedentary, overweight, sitting on the couch. I was facing double knee replacements. I was dealing with pancreatitis, diverticulitis, autoimmune disease, heart disease, high cholesterol, migraines, gastrointestinal issue. I was riddled with chronic disease. And at 40 years old, I thought that this was just life. I was also 100 pounds over, I was 100 pounds more than I was today. Yes, I lost 100 pounds doing this. I went to the doctor every week. I was doing diets every single day. I was doing keto. I was doing Weight Watchers. I was in the biggest industry out there. How do we get healthy? I wanted to know what pill I needed to take. I needed to know what, diet I needed to take. And none of those things worked. So when my daughter came home 13 years ago and said she wanted to go vegan, at the time I thought I knew everything. And I said, that's ridiculous. That's unhealthy. Where are you going to get your protein, calcium, all the stereotypical things that many people to this day still ask me. So not only did I research how long we could live, without eating animal, I just didn't want to believe it when I'd seen it. I didn't want to believe it, so I shut it down. I realized she was going to be okay. But after 9 surgeries and 11 months between my husband and I was, my heaviest was 280 pounds. And at the time I was about 230 pounds. I decided to take the information that I had seen and put it to use. And we transitioned the family in January of 2013 to a whole food plant-based diet. And it completely changed our life. I lost 100 pounds. My family lost 250 pounds. And we, of course, reversed all those chronic diseases that came with the standard American diet. I couldn't believe nobody was talking about this. I couldn't believe my doctor wasn't telling me. I couldn't believe we didn't learn in kindergarten protein came from plants. So I've dedicated my life at this point to getting this information out to people, making it readily available, easily understood, and able to take action so that they can do this too.
Yeah, as you were describing kind of your earlier part of your journey, the image of a ping pong ball comes to mind whenever I kind of hear people struggling, right? It's not that they want to do the right thing, but it's so confusing out there, and they don't even know if they're on the right track because they're expecting change perhaps quicker than it should come, but they quickly realize, eventually they realize they don't know what they're doing. And honestly, why should they, right? Because you touched on it. We were never taught this stuff. So beating people up because they're not doing what we think is the right thing, or beating yourself up because you're not having success, to me is like, just let it go. That's not helping anybody, right? That occupies so much of the noise out there, whether it's social media, well-intentioned friends that want to try to help because it worked for them, and we never
It's
really know what people did or what their particular issues were. But for a lot of people, I think where you're at too is like, for I'll say comfortably 80% of the people, it's pretty simple. Right?
it, it, it
Once you know.
once you know and you stop the analysis paralysis, you know where to find, I empower people with, you have the tools, you're here. But like you said, it is not, you don't need to go to college to learn this knowledge. Like, this is something that everybody should understand, is we should be eating more fruits and vegetables. It shouldn't be that hard, but the information does make it really overwhelming for people. And it is the number one thing that inhibits people from reaching their goals, is all that information and feedback from the others around them. Getting healthy, people were shocked. They thought I was sick. They thought I had cancer. They were in disbelief that what happened. Well,
Yeah.
what happened is I got healthy, and it was upsetting that they thought I was sick when in fact it was quite the opposite.
Yeah, well, we've got the validation of many years later now to kind of see, yeah, there's a whole lot of energy going on over there in that other side of my camera. Talk to me a little bit more kind of about your community so I kind of understand. So it's a virtual community, I gather, and just talk to me a little bit about
Sure.
that world, because I think, again, it's different than like people join Facebook communities and some other things that are just kind of random. They sound like they have a good topic that maybe I'm going to learn something, or I'll find some peers in there. Tell me about your community and kind of what that involves.
Well, I've definitely learned along the way what's going on, and we need constant reassurance that what we're doing is the right thing. Like you said, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of stuff going on. It gets overwhelming, and so many people are in need of that support. So we started 4 years ago. The Saturday support group is kind of how this started. We started a Saturday support group when COVID was going on and everybody was saying they needed to get together. We started a Saturday support group. The Wednesday nutrition, education, and cooking classes came in. I created a Facebook group, and this has taken some years to, get down and get easy going. The community is the secret sauce to so much of this success. In the community, how do I explain this? I'm going to give you the feedback that I get from other people, because I'm just over here, showing up. I love my job. I love what I do. But the feedback from everybody in the community is that there's nothing like this. The sense of community, the closeness, the openness, the ability to engage daily with each other and then meet up face to face in this support group, see each other on the Wednesday night. It's like this big giant group of people, Scott, and the dopamine of the wins that we talk about, the obstacles to get through it. It isn't just about food, and it isn't just about weight loss. People are getting better sleep. People are, in a better mood. People are more active. People are much happier, because there is a continuing constant feed of a pay it forward humanitarian vibe of just you doing this is helping to save more lives and inspire more people. So within that Facebook community, there is a lot of work going on. It's like they're handing in their homework, they're getting engaged with these daily dopamine hit challenges that I do that specifically focus on, they don't even realize it, behavior changes. So for instance, this week is all about mindful eating. So I take during the week moments where I talk about mindful eating. Next week, it'll be about sleep. The week after that, it'll be mindful exercise, stress management. And we continue to repeat these dopamine hits of positive behavior change, making sure that it's engaging and interacting, which is just creating more dopamine hits, and more people want to get in on it. It's like the price is right, is what I see on my end. You know, every time I show up, everybody wants to come on down, share their wins. They've come in to find a very positive dopamine hit place where nobody's losing, nobody's not doing well. There's so many things to be doing good that it just makes them want to keep getting healthier because they're real people that they get to really engage with who are really learning how to build these behavior changes that last forever. I don't even know what to say. It's awesome. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's and I see that in my students, and it was just writing about it yesterday actually, and I forget about it. Right, like when we're busy working on content and trying to keep, new things coming forward, new ways to talk about old topics, and however we may want to try to mix it up a little bit, because you and I both understand we're not just moving one ball down the road. We're moving a whole bunch of balls all together, and they're not all going to go at the same speed. And that's okay. That's normal. But we got to keep most of them in motion, and eventually you look back over time and you see progress. But what you mentioned there, I think is really important, and it kind of, I guess, set it up earlier, is the success rate that you and I both see. We're doing different types of programs. I'm really focused more on the education piece.
Yeah.
I'm meeting people at a particular place, and I get the personal, like we're in a space together. But if there's a common theme that we hear amongst the kind of those who have tried, I'll just kind of use weight loss as the easy one for people to, assuming that's all we're talking about, which isn't true, but to see the kind of success rates that you and I have,
Yeah.
not common.
It is not common. You are right. So you know what I'm doing over here, and you know that it's a little bit more than diet. Everybody has such I'm not going to say everybody, but the majority of the United States has an unhealthy relationship with food. And because of my weight loss story, I am definitely getting that as the majority of my clientele
Right.
is weight loss and stuff like this. Like you were teaching things that seem fairly easy, but telling people to eat more to lose weight is not an easy thing for them to undo with the cultural
Right.
conditioning that has played such a role. So,
So just before you go forward on that,
yeah,
I want to hit on that one,
yeah.
because that one is in conflict with people's logic. So
Hmm.
so tell me why they could possibly eat more to lose weight.
Well, one is nutrient density. I really make it clear to people that this isn't a diet, that in order for our body to heal, in order for it to lose the weight, in order for the fat, which is such a smart thing to have on our body, it's keeping us safe. We've been starving ourselves, we've been nutrient deficient, we've been beating ourselves up. So the way I try to explain to people is this fat is kind of keeping us safe. We've learned that we need to cut calories, we need to cut carbs, we need to cut our portions in order to lose weight, which it may work for a short time, but it doesn't reverse disease, and it truly isn't going to keep that weight off. So what I get into with people is we need to nourish to flourish. And when I'm teaching, the Eat Your Plants Off classes are no oil, low fat, copious amounts of whole food, plant-based. I have people coming in learning how to eat 2,000 calories on average, keeping fat grams low because fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes are naturally low in fat. So when they get the calories up and they're able to boost that mitochondria, and the fat feels like you're giving me everything I need, it starts to come off. In short, eating a low fat, whole food, plant-based diet is not only delicious, I could talk forever. It's very simple to eat all you want, get all those fibers and those nutrients, and your body just starts to, the gut, the healing, it all just starts to happen. But getting people to eat more is my number one obstacle, and that's why I trademarked Eat Your Plants Off and started the classes so that we could focus on volume, nutrient density, and breaking those old habits and myths, of course, that we've all learned.
Yeah, yeah. The way I describe it, that maybe is because the engineer has put some numbers to it.
Yeah.
So let's say you need 2,000 calories a day. That's what your body needs to maintain all the functions that we call normal life.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's say for that 2,000 calories, this doesn't work quite this simply, but for the purpose of just trying to dumb it down, we'll say that's 2,000 milligrams of nutrients.
Yeah.
Okay? We'll say it's 2,000 calories, and your body also needs 2,000 milligrams.
Yep.
Right? And so if you don't eat the 2,000, right, you're not giving it, it says right away, you're not giving it the nutrients that it needs. So you're only giving it, so we'll say you're eating 1,500 calories a day. It means you cut your nutrient needs by a quarter. And right away now the body, the organs, the functions are starving for nutrients.
Yes.
Right? And now let's say, well, you're not eating particularly healthy because, well, if I'm only going to get 1,500 calories, I want to make sure I get my whatever my treat is, right? Because I need to reward myself. And so I'm going to lose another 500 of valuable nutrients by eating the chocolate bar or whatever the treat substitute is. And now suddenly I'm only getting half the nutrients that I really need. Versus flip it around and say, no, eat all the greens, all of those low caloric density foods that are high in nutrients. You can get more than 2,000 milligrams of nutrients.
Yes.
And probably manage more than 2,000 calories a day, perhaps at the same time. But it's like kind of we've in the process of dieting, right? It was so focused on calories, as though it was all about calories. Your body has a pretty good way of buffering and neutralizing, right, calories, because if you adjust up or down 10%, does your weight go up or down 10%? It doesn't, right? Because your body has a built-in buffer.
It knows.
To correct.
It knows.
Well, I got to hit it more. Well, it'll correct more, and it'll keep correcting until you get some kind of disease starts to happen, right? So it's just another way I've tried to explain this to people because, like you, we just hear it all the time. It's ingrained in us. And my first reaction still is, well, I should probably cut back a little bit on, whatever.
It's
if I feel
almost
like
accidental when it comes into my mind. You know what I mean? Of course, I really try to explain it to people just as simple. If, I'm in Chicago, if I want to get out to you on the East Coast, I'm not going to put a quarter tank of gas in my car to try to make it to the full trip. I need a full tank. I need to get on that road because most people fill up with that quarter tank. They have to stop, pull over. And I'm just going to say, next thing you know, you're in a gas station with a bag of chips. I mean, the analogy is real in both ways. So people aren't eating enough. They're fueling their cravings. They're addicted to these things. We've got marketing in our face. We've got designer drug commercials. It could be so overwhelming for people, even in the plant-based world, so to speak. So we just continue the classes are not confusing at all. I'm not bringing processed foods in because the studies continue to show us nourishing is exactly how we're going to heal, reverse disease, live longer, and I just can't stop teaching people we have to eat more of these foods. And every week, I can't believe it. I had to eat more. I had to eat more. And this is that domino effect in this group where people are not just hearing me say it now, they're hearing it. Oh, and we have to hear it over and over again as a instructor, teacher, repetition.
Yeah, because we still forget things. Because it's so deeply ingrained, like our sense of food scarcity.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's still part of our patterns because, well, if I don't eat, I'm going to be hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I don't eat, or what if, I wake up tomorrow and whatever the fridge is bare because somebody emptied it out. Yeah, it's so one of the things you kind of touched on, I think, is a great place to go. Is two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about patterns with you. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I want to talk about is when you say plant-based. And I think this is a place, again, where everything has got turned upside down and people think they're doing the right thing. So talk to me about when you say plant-based, what is it and what isn't it?
I'm really glad that you asked that question because in 2013, when I said I'm going vegan, that meant whole grains, greens, fruits. There was no question that it meant being healthy, eating healthy foods. Then it turned into plant-based was the words to use. And then this paradigm shift is happening right now. And of course, they're jumping on the bandwagon, and we've got tons of plant-based products. We're seeing commercials for chickens that are eating plant-based. This can be very confusing to consumers. We see plant-based on chicken packages now. Plant-based has now become just a marketing word, is how I
Right.
feel. So I've had to come back and bring it now down to whole food plant-based so that we can make it more clear that we're not eating chickens who've eaten plant-based foods. I just try to say nourish to flourish, eat your plants off, and I'm eating a whole food plant-based diet is a little bit longer, but it can be confusing. Plant-based could mean eating Beyond Burgers, and I'm grateful that they're out there and they're making a positive impact, but that's not the positive impact I'm looking for when it comes to reversing heart disease. So I have to be very clear with, this isn't plant-based anymore. This is nourish to flourish. This is eat your plants off. This is how to eat unlimited amounts. And plant-based processed foods are not going to be part of that longevity.
Right. Yeah. I don't know of anyone who got healthier by eating, not to pick on Beyond Burger or Impossible Burgers,
Of course.
who got healthier eating those foods. What I think it's interesting, it says in the food industry is how clever they are at making foods mimic other foods.
Yeah.
Right. So from a science standpoint and technology, it's pretty interesting.
Amazing.
And if you need it as some kind of a transition, that's fine. But as I kind of step back and say, well, why does it need to taste like anything else? Why can't it just taste like it tastes?
That's a really great way of putting it.
So if it's peas, well, then let's enjoy peas, because fresh peas
Yeah.
are full of flavor. I don't know, pick that one, but pick any food you want and say, why would you want to make it taste like something else?
Yeah, I believe that's what I had to do in order to survive, is what I always think about. I believed that that is what I needed to do to be satisfied, to be happy, to be healthy. Life was all about these commercials that said, you have to have this meat and you have to do this. So I feel some of that is a little conditioning that kind of went on along the way. Marketing, of course, but I agree with you. Like, I've never eaten more foods, flavors, cuisines, and it's all been the true, foods that heal the body. So yeah, it's much easier than it needs to be. And I'm grateful for those products, but I had just seen in a local community group, a local vegan group, actually, somebody had a heart attack. Her husband was vegan, and for over 20 years. And she came in and just made a statement that these processed foods are not healthful. They're helpful, but they're not healthful. So I try to be
Right.
very, very clear with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. There's many, whichever food group we're talking about, it's pretty easy to be tempted by something that, again, it's packaged really interesting. It sounds like it's got, like a barbecue flavor, and I'll kind of get that barbecue thing, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It says, well, enough, as though it was just the meat that was the problem. And you kind of, like that. And I think that's the other thing, which people, I would say as in the world of nutrition, because it's difficult to do studies really well, and you start to look at it and say, well, and I'll just use I'll choose a McDonald's Happy Meal, for example. Not that I really know what that is, but I'm assuming it's a burger, fries, and a drink, right?
That smaller version of,
Right. And so we assume that, and I'll just kind of play to the non-vegans here, that we assume that it's all about the meat, that's the meat in the burger is what the issue. Well, just step back and look at what all is with it now. So the meat kind of gets hit with that and gets tagged with it. And again, not that it's like, if I'm going to eat meat, it's not going to be a McDonald's burger for sure. But look at all that goes with it. That's just the burger. Now look at the fries. Now look at the drink. And so, but the point is, I think that's part of the confusion. And people understandably say, well, I don't understand why you're picking that as the problem, because it doesn't make sense to them, because we don't stop and just take a moment to explain these are the elements. And you could take, I don't know how many ingredients there are in that Happy Meal. It's a long list of ingredients. Say, okay, now let's rank them. quantity best to worst. The best aren't maybe going to be the greatest, but they aren't all like terrible. But take a look at that and say 80% of those, you really don't ever want those.
No, I was going to say the nutrient content of the fat alone, it's the
Yeah,
fat grams, it's the fat in the foods, it's the high fat foods, it's the high oils, that's what's taking people out.
right, right. Yeah. So the other part I mentioned, thankfully I remembered, was patterns and why. And I talk about patterns a lot too, which is, I think, kind of interesting now with AI kind of coming into everyone's world. And if you don't know anything about AI in terms of the concept of AI, AI is largely about pattern recognition around what things that our brain can do that AI can do much better, is to recognize many more patterns. And we'll get into all the health benefits we're going to see from that down the road. But this whole idea around understanding the patterns of how we eat versus following a specific diet. So if we said, whatever diet we're talking about, ultimately what you and I would look at it to say, well, what are the patterns within that diet that you're following? Because that's really what matters. Put whatever label on, like you just use the vegan, right? Well, there's this vegan and that vegan. Like, they aren't the same vegan,
No,
right?
it's
The
not.
patterns within them will look drastically different regardless of the label you put on, right?
Yeah, definitely. I always try to say, and I hope this is relatable. A lot of people come to me and they're talking about these patterns that they're in. I've done this, I've done this, I've been doing this, I've been doing this. And I always say, and is that working for you? This pattern has to change,
Right.
is where I come in. If that's answering the question, or if that's how I relate the pattern, like these patterns that we all get stuck in, the results are the same. No matter what label you put on it, it's going to change dramatically when you understand the concept of nutrition, nutrient density, nourishing, and these lifestyle things. That pattern that we've all gotten ingrained into thinking, the dieting, the diet culture, the weight loss, the way that people associate that with reversing disease and health, when that doesn't always indicate health. It's so confusing for people when I just want to simplify it and say the pattern here is eat your plants off, nourish to flourish, and focus on the foods that we know scientifically have been for decades. What is it, 400 BC? We
Yeah.
knew food is thy medicine. Like, why aren't we talking about this every day? Why aren't we seeing it across, the news every day? That's the pattern that needs to
Yeah.
change.
Well, right. And so that whole argument gets, they go at it with the hunter gatherers, right? In terms of whether we were carnivores, whether we were plants
I don't,
only, because everyone wants to have the big debate. And I think there's a video I use in my class, and it just kind of like as though we understand food and how it's constantly changing.
I don't need a crossbow to go get my lunch today. So
Yeah, and you just realize we don't know nearly as much. Like, if anyone is professing to know, well, whatever you know is in a slice of time, because humans are highly adaptable. They will eat whatever they can along the way. It doesn't mean it's best, but I gotta live to wake up tomorrow morning.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
That was the goal.
The We don't have to hunt. I mean, a lot of people bring that argument into the gatherer and the hunter. I mean, sure, we've got some biological things that our body is always searching for, the highest, fattest food, the quickest source, like you mentioned, but we're not living in those conditions anymore where we have to scavenge like that or hunt for our food. So that argument is it's getting old.
Yeah, and one of the things I do and I talk about in the book is, in terms of what I kind of give the tiers of food, is to think about quality. As soon as you put quality number one,
Yeah.
it essentially rules out a lot of these foods. Like, if you have five foods in front of you, forget about what type of food it is.
Yeah.
Most people are pretty good at figuring out which is, they could rank them probably reasonably well from 1 to 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you kind of start with what's in front of me, or what are my choices, what's the quality. Next is variety, which we kind of, right, eat your plants off. So it's the whole idea of not one plant, like eat a lot of different whole big variety. Um, and then the other big one with that is fiber, which just is there fiber? If it doesn't have fiber with it, it's not probably going to make the quality list.
It shouldn't be in there. It's like empty fuel.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's, or maybe it's been processed out of it. It in its whole food, it would have had it. And so the role of fiber, people, again, this is what we were told
Underestimated.
it was associated with. It's going to make me go to the bathroom too much. I don't want that, or it's going to give me gas. Wow. It's just, right. These are things, beliefs that are so long held because we heard them as kids and that was just commonplace. But in
It,
reality, these are the things that there is no question. So I'll just say on fiber. I have never heard any scientist, any credible physician
mm-mm.
say that fiber was bad for you. Or I can tell you from every longevity study, fiber is core to
it's
living a long life.
it's the sole piece to fuel our body, to feed our gut, to make our body function properly. And you said something so important. I haven't seen a credible study or doctor talk about it, but unfortunately, you can scroll out there. I've had to stop and go, did you guys see these reels or these commercials of people saying fiber will constipate you? Like this stuff that I see, and people send it to me like, Stephanie, I saw this. What does this mean? And I said, it means you should put your phone down and just start eating your plants off because nothing there is going to help you get fiber into your body. This is just,
Yeah.
it's a shame.
Yeah, it's
Fiber is
a
fiber is the key to
it's an
being fiber.
unregulated world
Yeah,
in all of this largely, right? And which wouldn't be so bad except that people just don't know because, you know, how many nutrition classes did you get in school growing up?
about as much as doctors, not
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, like all we talked about in health class was sexual sexual sexual
Diseases.
function
Yeah.
and disease, and that was apparently what all health was.
And cigarette smoking.
Right, right.
That was the one thing that they had in there. But you're right. They aren't, nobody's really talking about this. Nobody's really teaching that fiber is the real MVP. You know, we've got Colace commercials, designer drug commercials, but I don't see any fiber commercials and how important it is going across because, of course, that's not making money getting people healthy, Scott. So that's why
Yeah.
this is so important what you're doing. We need to learn how to be, I teach people how to be self autonomous in a world where they're listening to all this information that is so confusing, so misleading. I give people the confidence and the tools so that they can get that fiber in and get literally turn their life around. It's that simple, like you said.
Yeah, so tell me let's kind of let's hear about kind of some examples of people who have really kind of you're not the only one who's done this in terms of you figured it out on your own
Yeah,
the hard way because there just was nowhere near as much information back there.
true.
But I know you've worked with some people, and I also want to hear the ones because we can't be successful with everybody. That nothing wouldn't I wouldn't believe it if someone tried to tell me anyway. But in terms of kind of some of the stories that you're most proud of, probably for the individuals involved versus, yeah, we don't do any of the work for them. We just provide information.
Provide information, give them the tools. We've had some very quick reversals of heart disease, severe heart disease. This one stands most in front of me if this is what you're looking for, some of these very quick turnarounds. This gentleman came to me with an A1C at 12.7. I think we may have even talked, no, this was afterwards. 12.7, his blood glucose levels were in the 300 and his cholesterol was in up to the 400 range. His doctor said, like, you need to be admitted. Your labs look worse than your father's, who has passed away from heart disease. He called me in the parking lot. And fortunately, this was somebody who lived nearby and he knew a little bit about me. So the first thing he said to me is, I told my doctor that I was going to do this. And my doctor said, there's no way that this is going to work. And that he was strongly, concerned about his decision. So anyway, long story short, in 3 weeks, I had him come over here. He said he couldn't eat beans because they freaked him out, which so many people have this misconception about food. And I said, no problem. I turned the beans into a chocolate pudding. I gave him a little lesson on pasta and that he can do this and keep it simple. And in 3 weeks, he was off all his insulin, his blood pressure medication, his cholesterol medications. And in less than 3 months, his A1C went from a 12 to a 7. These are significant changes that are happening. I've had quite a few people lose hundreds of pounds, 100 pounds for somebody, another 175 for somebody. She didn't lose that all in here with me, but she's been on this journey learning it's not just about the food. Now we're in a maintenance level of now what? So there's all these things. I just had a lady in class this week say her results from her tumor shrinking. Her tumor has shrunk since making this significant change. 7 stents later, doctors impressed, helping him get off his heart disease medications, and his angina has calmed down. A couple people with angina, lots of autoimmune, Graves' disease, lupus, lots of Hashimoto's, hyperthyroidism, from restless leg syndrome, erectile dysfunction, PCOS, infertility. We have 2 people that have reversed their infertility diagnosis and have successfully had babies, all because people are getting more fiber in, all because people are learning how to find the right information that actually can prevent, treat, and reverse these diseases. And the most shocking thing is, I always say, and did your doctor ever ask you what you were eating or what your diet and lifestyle was? And it's never the case. But I teach people that it's not about dieting, no more dieting. We're just going to make these shifts. And then we see, well, and the whole community, the coaching, this is what's keeping this going so well. So 17 weeks ago, John and I decided to start the Plantspiration Unplugged. Since we aren't doctors, since we aren't having studies, we wanted to make sure people were able to hear the results. So we started a Plantspiration Health Report weekly 17 weeks ago. And since have logged in, this is just making people get more excited, 1,414 pounds in the last 17 weeks that we've collected. And it continues to grow massively each week. And each week people are listing medications that they're reducing, removing, and diseases that they're reversing. So now we're keeping weekly reports to share with everybody to show that I'm not the only one. These are regular people doing real stuff. So the results we're sharing every week. There's so many diseases that have been reversed. I can't keep track. It's just happening all over.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe a good place to drill into for a moment, because again, we're used to a belief system that a doctor is going to prescribe something to treat my disease, right? So we're used to some external input, unaware of what the body's natural state is to want to heal itself. So I'll use the example of you cut a finger. Why doesn't it keep bleeding?
Yeah.
Right? Because instantly your body sends out a signal that you've got a cut there. So the first step is to send out some inflammation to try to stabilize it.
Yeah.
Right? Starts to clot the blood, and then it gets busy reconnecting cells. Yeah. And it starts at the base closest to where the blood supply is and works its way. And the last part to heal is the surface. Like, we've all had the paper cut and we can see it. I use that analogy to explain what happens when we exercise in terms of for the heart. Yeah. And so where we create what's called recirculation, so if it happens slow enough and if you're active enough, if you have a restriction in one of your arteries, is that an adjacent artery will start to grow capillaries closer to that muscle to try to feed the muscle, because the body instinctively wants to heal and wants to repair itself. Yeah. And so if that's to me is I can give you lots of reasons to exercise regularly, but that's the value of doing it regularly over a long period of time. And that's why I try to explain to people, athletes have heart attacks at the same rate as the general public, but far fewer die from heart attacks. And that's really wise. They've essentially got this secondary supply of blood so that while they may have some angina, the
Yeah.
heart doesn't stop functioning. It just, they get some pain, they get some warning, and they get in and get some treatment, and they get time, right? That's if we say about, if we're worried about any of these catastrophic diseases, particularly like heart and stroke,
Yeah.
your best friend at that moment is time,
This time.
right?
That's really fascinating. I didn't know quite those details about exercise. I mean, I do talk about it, but I didn't know that. I knew that runners, of course, athletes still have heart attacks, but I didn't realize the correlation between that. That's really amazing. My mind was going to angiogenesis and just how quickly
Exactly.
these things grow within
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
body. 11 hours for our cholesterol to go down. The people also don't realize how powerful and how quickly we can raise disease and how quickly we can turn it off and on. It happens so rapidly. The healing, like you said, the finger, our body is healing in my mind all day long. It's trying to just do the right thing and heal. And we have stuff coming at it that, free radicals, it's doing all this stuff. The least we could do is put in the fuel, for goodness sakes, and help it along so we can go roller skate and do our fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, the other analogy I use is, imagine you just keep rubbing sandpaper on your finger, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's just going to always hurt, and it's going to get worse and going to get worse as long as you continue doing it.
I'm going to
Just stop insulting it with the sandpaper and watch. Instantly it starts. And that's the same with food. Like if you don't give it, like that's what sleep is for, right?
Yes.
It's the restorative function. Well, but it's got to first deal with all the crap that you fed it that day. And when I say fed it, I don't just mean food in terms of,
I know.
it's got to deal with everything. And it's only got so many hours to work. And then it's like, okay, let's go again. And so the more you overload it, essentially, so we think about, so the body's repair system is based on a priority system, right? Like everything, my body's job is to get you through this minute, through the next hour, through the next day, and wake up the next morning. Those are its overriding priorities. Anything else it does is a bonus. And so if you're thinking about living long or longevity, you got to add extra time for the body to be able to do that kind of work, which it wants to do.
It wants to.
It knows how. Just, again, get out of the way and stop insulting it quite as often. And you'll find that, oh, I get a reaction, and now I get the response to say, okay, now I'm actually seeing a connect, right? And you would see this with your folks in the community. Once they make a change and they get some feedback, it's like, oh, I've seen other people do it, now I'm having it. And I think but you got to get people to that point, right?
Exactly. It's really powerful. Exactly. I just want more people to realize what they need to make it happen. And the confusion and the information is just, while you're talking about this, it's exactly what holds people back. It's those limiting beliefs. It's those old patterns. This is where the changes occur, with that repetitiveness of hearing other people reversing the disease, hearing other people facing obstacles on how to get through it, and making this more of a normal thing to eat more food, to get better sleep. And like you said, you use this this wonderful word to describe the way that we're damaging our body all day, or we're insulting it.
Right.
The amount of information that people are, the amount of insulting information throughout the day that people are taking and scrolling, seeing, all of this, that impact on trying to get your body, like you said, to rest and reset. That's another big key component. Stress management plays a significant role in my group and these people, because if they don't get some of that insulting to stop, they never move forward with the healing part. So you can have 99% of the people that come into my group are already plant-based pros. They've been through all the other plant-based programs. They've done it all, but they can't make it stick. By the way, that's 99% are repeat whole food, plant-based, eaters who can't make this pattern stick. It's all that insulting that goes on all day long, all that confusion. And that's where that stress management component the dopamine hits that I work with all the time, I believe, Scott, this is that next level that takes them to the healing process and understanding we need to stop insulting, slow it down, be more mindful. And this is something that people are learning the most of at Plantspiration, is to take that part, the stress management, stop insulting, getting the good sleep. Movement comes in later, but there are those huge components to make that stick. Interesting with all the people that know about plants and still can't get that pattern down. But
Yeah, it's a well, I think we at the start we talked about this. I'm glad we led there because there's a one of the leading addiction scientists who's doing some work with
Gabor, I don't know why he comes up. I'm gonna take
yeah, no, but the work that they had done, they realized the power was in the community that they built around. So they built it around the world so that people had community at whatever time of day it was around the world. Because if you wanted to, again, help a large group of people, you needed to have people available because it was the community piece that provided whether it was answering a question or just being able to identify, but just our need to feel part of a supportive community, right? And so you've got to make a conscious effort to make it, again, that choice between like on the quality. So apply quality now to the community where you spend your time.
Yeah.
Right? You can't make the negative impacts go away. And the hard part is when those can be at home and in your family situation where you've got some negative community in terms of negative support issues. Those are clearly, I would imagine you must run into that in terms of, I'm guessing they're some of the most challenging people that in terms of their challenge is high, right?
Exactly. And if it wasn't for the community, that is their first response. If it wasn't for this community, I wouldn't be able to do it. People rely on willpower, but they don't realize that this is about habit change. And if we don't have other people helping us build these habits and we don't see other people doing it, it doesn't work.
Yeah, willpower is a fuse, right? It's great to light it and it looks pretty exciting for a while, but eventually it burns
fizzles out. Yeah, it fizzles out. I've learned these same tools, the mindfulness, the stress management, the sleep, all of those worked. Like you said, I had that willpower to lose the weight, but I would have stopped at 30 pounds. Something changed for it to have made it to this level. And that's the difference. And even from the weight loss to the business it's the same concept over and over again. To grow, to thrive, to accelerate. Same concept of habit changes, I just think dopamine and positivity. These guys I kind of say to everybody, I do a month. Here, let me break down this. I was a little all over the place with the program. I do a live Monday motivation. There's nothing like kicking this off. And it's always going to be a dopamine hit talk that teaches people how to raise their dopamine. For example, I love to gamify stuff. We can play a video game, when we have to go through that level so many times in order to just get it right so we can get to the next level. So I do a lot of this style coaching on behavior change of, you guys, you're just trying to get through this level. You can do it, and that giving compliments, sharing the things that are working for you. We do Tuesday grocery haul. It's a big component. We have to get through that grocery store with all that marketing. Wednesday's the nutrition class. Thursday's another thrive day, how to thrive through more behavior changes. And then Saturday is that support group. So this is like they just say this is the happiest place. It's all dopamine. There's no negative. There's no memes. And it's nothing but support for people who say, I'm having a tough time. It's like they're even learning how to come forward and go, I'm not really sure how to do this part, but they're not making excuses anymore. They're learning how to navigate through those challenges in a much different way, in a more positive way.
Yeah, and I really like that you talk about what happens in that group is, and I think the gamifying is perfect, right, is you're working through steps.
Yep.
Because traditionally we say, I'll just use the weight example again. I need to lose X number of pounds for some event, some weeks or months ahead. right?
Yeah.
And that puts a whole big burden on your on
That's setting you up for failure.
and you have no idea other than you think you're going to just reduce calories, and that's what you've told is supposed to happen, and you get 3 weeks into it, and yeah, the first 2 weeks you lost some water weight and some other things, and it's like, oh, everything came to a halt, and the frustration. So it's the belief that I can't do it, and I think that's the other, right, is the reinforcement that your community no doubt brings is, no, yes, you can, and this is where we can help you. And I think that's we really underestimate the value of community. And I think that's the fact that you're able to do that in a virtual community, because I think of, the virtual communities we have, most of them are probably negative in terms of health
Interaction.
influences, right?
Yeah, that and then we're losing a lot of interaction in a lot of these really
Right.
amazing communities too. A lot of people are coming in saying, "I've never had this much connection," and I'm never going to sell out on that. I'm working on, healing 1 million people for $100, not 100 people for $1 million. I am going to continue to bring this level of. We need this interaction. People need to see somebody who's doing it, who's living it, who's loving it. And then there's just a bunch of people who want to pay it forward. The whole vibe in here is like nothing else. They all just want to help other people. And I continually say, you can't even help anybody until you help yourself first. And then they get excited too. I think it's just, I'm proud of what I see everybody doing in there. And it's only helping me grow at becoming better at helping more people become self-autonomous and learn these things that are going to help them live longer, because nothing out here is supporting longevity. And I'm pointing to society. It's not easy to get this information out, and all I want to do is break it into the mainstream. That's another thing I'm really excited about, is we've really broken this out of that. I want to say that world. And more people are watching John and I because we are just kind of regular people, and they're fascinated by, look at what they're doing over there. We're making it more realistic in that area. People are seeing it like, this doesn't seem so complicated. And that's what's happening right now, and that they're all loving the interaction and the liveness of it. I mean, there's so many incredible programs. I mean, there's been lives saved for centuries. I'm just over here getting it going and following in the paths of all these amazing mentors I've had. But what's different about Plantspiration is it's so interactive and it's so engaging. I mean, you can go back and watch all my lives and all my coaching calls, but everybody just wants to be right there in that come on down, Price is Right moment of, we're all here and we're watching it. It's just constant.
I've seen, when you say mainstream, it's an observation I've had with a number of people who are kind of, I'll say, notable, some of the, that have really been on the forefront. And there's clearly been a shift of realizing we don't have to be extreme around any of this. We don't have to be on the fringe. Yeah. This is mainstream, and I can now talk to mainstream, because the thing that I thought was the secret sauce was, well, it was kind of, a polishing thing. It wasn't the main thing, right? And I think that's what gets lost. The other I was thinking when you're talking about your community was the value I would assume you probably have is you now have a mature community of people who have done it. Yeah. Right? I kind of say, like, so who are the biggest or the most outspoken about not smoking? Those who quit.
Exactly.
Right? Those who transformed.
It's powerful. It's powerful. It builds self-confidence. That's another thing that's going on every day. I meet people where they are. A lot of people come in and they say, okay, I need a menu, I need recipes. And they think that this is going to be some structured thing, but I always go back to what's working. We're going to build on that. And they're blown away that this isn't about, I need to lose, 20 pounds by this next wedding. Those intrinsic motivation, that doesn't work. Yeah. It doesn't work. And we do have a lifestyle. We do have a lifetime membership, because people everybody's talking about getting healthy, but we're really doing it. And the people that are getting healthy are getting so pumped up that they know that they can't change anybody. I do a lot of talk about that. I can't make you do this. You can't listen to me, and I can't force you to do it. But you can learn more about it, and you can see others doing it. And that's the biggest inspiration. So it's coming right back to Plantspiration, and they know it. I say, you doing this and you representing this is the biggest impact that you could make in society. So keep it going.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not what you say, it's what you do, right? It's what's the behavior you model. That's what everyone pays attention to.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here today again, following up, because I've been following you for so long and it's just so consistent and so dependable. So,
Well, I live, currency is health for me. That's my currency, is getting people healthy. That's my own dopamine hit. Just like, I'm blown away. I wake up every day and I'm just like, I cannot believe how grateful I am that I had the ability to inspire people, learn from all my mistakes. This has been nothing but a lesson of learning in order to make this work for people. And I know what it feels like to lose 100 pounds. I know what it feels like to face diets. I know what it feels like to not have a support system. I know what it feels like for my doctor to not understand what he's talking about. And we've just built a big support system on this new paradigm shift and how we're going to navigate through getting people actually healthy again, because you can't rely on anything out there.
it's the only person that's going to make you healthy is you, right? And so you better think carefully about where you're going to get information from. And again, we said at the top of the show, we arrived missing a lot of information, and trying to figure out what's reliable information is hard. And sometimes it's not what we want to hear, but ultimately kind of and that's what I think, again, the community is, look around the room. Right?
It's inevitable.
Who are the people you want to start to replicate, or in terms of mirror that kind of behavior, and who do you want to identify with?
We also, this is great that you say that, because I didn't mention we have a Win Wednesday every week in the group. So every Wednesday, everybody's waiting to drop like their wins. And the wins are, I got up and moved every hour. I meditated. I was breathing. I lowered my blood pressure. I was happier. There's wins in more ways than just fiber, but it makes them want to eat more fiber when they feel all this self-confidence, and having other people support it, we know is evidence-based of why this is so successful. So I love what you said about a mature group. It did take a minute. That was trial and error and patience and all those things. And again, but it's incredible, actually. It's going to keep going without me, is what I'm going to say. It'll just keep going because it's so solid.
It's I think what's clear is you've really established the evidence now of an ability to empower people, right? So that's giving them knowledge, giving them the practice, giving them the tools, giving them support, putting them in a community, all the elements of resources for them to realize they can do this, and it's okay to need help, because that's what we all need help from all sorts of places. That's right. But look for help in places where you can trust the information
see the results,
is reliable, and all they care about is you, in terms of your outcomes, not the product that I can shove down your throat for just $19.99 if you buy today, and I'll give you a discount, or I'll throw in a free one.
People are tired of that.
Yeah, it's those are the product salespeople are selling product. That's their goal. They make it sound like they're selling health, but they're really selling product. And I think that's what I am just so excited about what you're doing, and all the people around us. I think, like we were talking before we got on the air, Stefanie and I are, we don't talk very often at all, but we're part of this much bigger and growing community that we kind of keep connected just by, it's that peripheral thing going on where I know what she's doing relatively. I don't know the details of it, but I see good things happening because there's good things happening all around us. And for anybody, like, what kind of community do you want to be part of? This is like you, right? This is the community I want to be part of. It lifts me up. It gets me excited. I know that they have my long-term interest at heart, and they want to help me however it is. And if it's just supporting and, and hitting the like button, whatever that is, they just want to be part of the community. And that's really all there is to it.
I'm glad you mentioned that. A lot of people like our approach, or they hear us say, John and I are volunteer our time. I mean, he's working 2 jobs. I'm running the nonprofit. We are volunteering our time to get this information to people. And that right there, that motivates people. They realize that I'm not gaining anything from this. I truly want people to get healthy. I was upset when nobody told me this. I was upset when I couldn't find the information. I was upset when I realized it was this easy and it wasn't shared. So that's another big part of this, is that, like you said, every video that people watch, all of that just goes right back into our program. And we offer grants. Veterans are free for our program. And our support for some of our members go beyond just the program. It's, doctor visits have been paid for, workout equipment, even food for some people who are trying to reverse disease and make these lifestyle changes. We just want to continue to get them into a supportive environment so that they can get this done. Because when people want it and they're ready for it, we're here for it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'll put it in the show notes as well, but for audio, if people have a pen and paper in hand, want to make sure they can find you and get plugged in.
Plantspiration.org, Plantspiration. That's really long, but plantspiration.org. You could just type in Plantspiration. You can find us out there. We have a new podcast, Plantspiration Unplugged. Our budget is so low, we don't even edit it. We just record and let it go. But it's our way of sharing with people just who we are, what we're doing, why we're so passionate about what we're doing, and just what's going on. How did these people turn into running this global nonprofit where people are learning how to prevent and reverse disease, and making such a wonderful shift for so many people in their lives. People want to, Scott, the industry is evident. It's the biggest industry of health. People want to get healthy, and they want a pill. But the truth is, if you really want to get healthy, you're going to need some fiber, you're going to need some community, and you're going to need some wonderful resources to validate you on this journey, like you're teaching people. It's a little unlearning and a lot of learning, but it's easier when we're doing it together.
Yeah, I think there's an art of working with adults. Once you realize how, it's not that hard, right?
Yeah.
You take what they do know and just kind of help them reshape it a little bit. And a lot of it's just connecting dots.
It is. People like to eat.
Yeah.
I just put the right stuff on their plate. It's never about what we're taking away. It's always about what we're gaining.
Right. Yeah, it's all about expansion, not contraction, in terms of, again, reverse to what the notions are around we're going to take things away. No, this is all about expansion. So Stefanie, thank you so much. I'm just so delighted that you would take time to spend with us again today. And let's do this again.
Of course. I'm honored to be here. This was one of my favorite interviews to have, by the way. I love this. I love your work. I love what you do. And I'm so grateful to be here today. So thank you so much for letting me share my story.
Okay, take good care. Thank
Thanks.
you.